Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters in Islam. We are on our 7th lesson. I think this is a very important milestone as well as a very important lesson for you to build a solid foundation in understanding morphology or Sarf in Arabic. What I'm going to do here in this lesson, inshallah, quickly review the scale of the madi and the mudari. Both of this should be now familiar with you if you're going through the lessons in sequence. So the idea now is to join it together to understand the concept of Baab or abwab, forms of letters or the scales of words in Arabic that will dictate to us what the madi and the mudari should look like. And of course, along with that, the other forms of verbs that we are going to learn in forthcoming lessons, as well as the many types of derived nouns. So there are 6 babs or abwab in Form 1, and we're going to introduce all 6 of them here in this lesson. And if you learn one of them very well, you will be able to conjugate as well as recognize any verb that follows that pattern. So we're looking at thousands and thousands of words, or verbs rather, in the madi and the mudari, which you should be able to recognize after this lesson. Again, if you just watch the video, I'm sure you will benefit, inshallah ta'ala. But more importantly, if you write and conjugate for yourself, the knowledge will stick, inshallah. And in the future, you will be able to draw on that knowledge as you come across different verbs. And as we complete this series in book 2, inshallah, you'll be able to recognize the madi, mudari, the amr, all forms of verbs, as well as many derived nouns for the most common babs of root letters that are used in the Qur'an. So let us begin with the blessed name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We make dua, Rabbi zidni ilma, O my Lord, increase me in knowledge. Alhamdulillah, you're already familiar with the fact that we have 3 root letters that form the past tense al-madi for thulathi mujarrad form 1, which are basically represented by fa, ain, and lam. 3 root letters, and I've got them marked here for you. And we have, of course, the first, the second, and the third root. In theory, any of the Arabic letters, consonants could go in here, depending on the root that it is. And in the madi, for the past tense, the first root letter will take a fatha. The last root letter will take a fatha. It is the middle root letter that varies. So you could have the scale of fa'ala, and that will give you, for example, fataha, which means he opened, and nasara, he helped. Or we could have fa'ila, and that will give us sami'a. Sami'a, the root, sin, mim, ain goes through this form or this scale. And we have alima, ain, lam, mim, and you note in both of these we have the kasra in the middle root letters. So we have fa'ala, fa'ila. Then we have fa'ula, which is the middle root letter taking a dhamma, and then we have an example here, karuma, meaning he was noble. At this stage, don't worry too much about vocabulary, what each word means. Focus on the scales themselves. So in theory, we have got that fully covered. The only variation in the scale is the dhamma, fatha, and kasra. And again, dhamma meaning pesh, fatha meaning zabar, kasra meaning zir. So these are the 3 middle root letter variation. Otherwise, the scale is identical for the madi. The scale of the mudari. The scale of the mudari is also 3 root letters, but there is an extra letter that comes in the beginning, which is called the harf of mudara, and that is only 4 letters. Please note, it is either ya, ta, hamza, meaning a, or na. These are the 4 letters that come at the beginning of the mudari. At this stage, inshallah, we'll cover that. So the letters are ya, ta, hamza, and nun. So these are the 4 letters, and if there's no these 4 letters, there's no prefix, it is not a present tense verb, it is not a mudari. Mudari has to have this. After that, you have your 3 letters, fa, ain, and lam, and again, it could be any root which is applicable and that goes through that scale. So we have end with 3. So we have yaf, alu, we have yaf, ilu, and we have yaf, ulu. For yaf, alu, we have yaftahu, he opens, or yadhhabu, he goes. Again, it could be any verb. I'm just picking these as they are very commonly used. Yaf'ilu will give us yadribu. So again, note, he strikes, as in the present tense translation I've used. yadhlimu, he wrongs. And then we have yaf'ulu, we could have yansuru, and then we have yakrumu. So these are the scales. The variation again being the second root letter, either taking a fatha, damma, or kasra. Now when we look at them side by side, we have the madi and we have the mudari, and of course you've got the sign of it being a present tense verb by the ya in the front. Depending on the conjugation, it could be ta, hamza, or noon. Now, long as you're familiar with these two, the question might arise in your mind, which one goes with the fatha, damma, or kasra? Which one goes with the fatha, damma, or kasra in the middle root letter for the madi or the mudari? How do we know? Well, there is no way of logically working it out. There are signs and things which we can learn later. But really, at the beginning, the best thing to do is to ask your teacher or look at the dictionary, and it will tell you what it should be. Through usage, inshallah, this topic will become clear. But please note, there is no fixed rule which you can say just because these root letters have this, therefore it must go through this pattern. It does not work like that. So we have now to learn which one will take the fatha, damma, kasra, and fatha, damma, kasra in the middle root letter for the madi and the mudari. So this is the concept of Baab. Abwab will tell us what it should be. Before we go, let us look at what happens in the English language. Let us say that I wanted to use a verb, for example, in the past tense. So if I say the verb to go in English, I would say he, she, they, you went. In the past tense. I would also say, for example, the man or XYZ went. So the doer can be a pronoun or a noun. And of course, in English, it always comes first. And then the verb is separate. In Arabic, you've seen that we don't need to do that. Now, if I wanted to put it into the mudari tense in equivalence in English, he goes would be one translation. He is going will be another translation if I'm doing it in the present continuous tense. And he will go in the present future tense. So I have to use will here, which you can see. I have to use the word will and or is I add something. In Arabic, of course, the meaning is within the verb itself. We will learn the nuanced meanings later on, inshallah ta'ala. So instead of using went and go, you can see that the root has completely changed. If there is a root system in the English language, there is no link between them. Whereas in Arabic, the root letters remain intact. The only thing difference is the scale. So let's look at another verb. For example, I want to say baked. B-A-K-E-D. He baked, she baked, you baked, the man baked, XYZ baked, Maryam baked, whatever. Somebody baked. Okay. Now in present tense, he'll be he bakes. He is baking. He will bake. So you can see that in English, we use different techniques for achieving the same thing. In Arabic, it will only be the scale. So in English, you just learn each word. You learn each word and you come along and you say, okay, this is the past tense and this is how I put it into the present tense. And you work your head around how this works. In Arabic, no. There will be a fixed scale for the madi and a fixed scale for the mudari. So you'll know from the scale of the word what it is referring to, which tense it is. So that's the contrast between English and Arabic as far as the conjugation of verbs are concerned. Again, of course, this is a very simplified example just to illustrate the point for our benefit. So in theory, brothers and sisters, if we say in the madi, we can have fa'ala. So for example, we have here fa'ala, or we can have fa'ila, or we can have fa'ula. 3 variations. In the mudari, it's the same thing. We can have yaf'alu, yaf'ulu, or yaf'ilu. 3 on top, 3 down. That gives us 9 combinations. So in possibility in Arabic, we can have fa'ala becoming yaf'alu in the mudari. We can also have fa'ala yaf'ulu, and we can have also fa'ala yaf'ilu. Then we see in Arabic, we can have fa'ila. That can also give us yaf'alu in theory. It can also give us yaf'ulu, fa'ila yaf'ulu, and we can also have fa'ila yaf'ilu. And for fa'ula, we can have fa'ula yaf'alu, then we can have fa'ula yaf'ulu, and fa'ula yaf'ilu. Of course, these are nonsensical words. I'm just the scale I'm showing you. Please note. So when we look into the entire Arabic language, what we find is that there is no example in Arabic of a verb coming from this scale. First three are found. 1, 2, 3. This one is also found, but not this one. This one is also found. But there is no fa'ila yaf'ulu verb at all, or anything that goes through that scale at all in the Arabic language. When it comes to the middle root letter, fa'ula, we note that there is not a single verb goes like this, fa'ula yaf'alu, just doesn't exist. We also note fa'ula yaf'ilu does not exist. See, the only one that exists is number 6, fa'ula yaf'ulu. So when it is the madi has a dhamma, you can almost be 100% certain that the mudari will also has a dhamma. But when the madi has a fatha, you cannot guess what it should be. When the madi has a fa'ila, there is 2 possibilities. So again, your guesswork goes reduced. But nonetheless, as I said, there is no sure way of knowing which is which. So there are only 6 possibilities. Out of 9, only 6 are applicable. So out of the 9 possible scales, we know that this one, and this one is not used. That leaves us 6. Now, instead of trying to memorize fa'ala yaf'alu, fa'ala yaf'ulu, fa'ala yaf'ilu, it's quite difficult, right? I'm only able to recall them with a lot of focus and reading the screen. You will not be able to remember them. So instead of trying to remember it that way, what we're going to do is we're going to use a verb that is commonly used in that scale, or a very common verb that is used in that scale, or that goes through the scale. We're going to use that as our example, and we're going to try and memorize that one. That way you'll find it a lot easier. So fa'ala yaf'alu example, we're going to use fataha yaftahu. So our first bab is fataha yaftahu. Please note, fataha means he opened, yaftahu means he opens. I'm not going to put translations on the screen, otherwise it just makes the screen a bit cluttered. Next example, fa'ala yaf'ulu. Rather than trying to remember that, we're going to call it nasara yansuru. So we have 2 now. Fataha yaftahu, nasara yansuru. And then we have daraba yadribu. So instead of saying fa'ala yaf'ilu, we're going to say daraba yadribu. So these are the 3 scales. Any root that goes into these 3 will follow it for every conjugation. So all you need to learn is fataha, and the hundreds and hundreds of verbs that will follow it will follow exactly the same with nasara and daraba. When the madi now takes a kasra, we have 2 options. We have sami'a yasma'u. Sami'a yasma'u. Again, rather than trying to remember fa'ila yaf'alu, sami'a yasma'u. And then of course the middle one does not exist. Our 5th scale will be hasiba yahsibu. Hasiba yahsibu. That is your 5th scale, where both the madi and the mudari take a kasra. And the last scale that is available in the language is karuma yakrumu, rather than fa'ula yaf'ulu. So we're not going to memorize scale in this way. We're going to remember an example verb. Just for your additional information, this scale is very rare. Very rare. This one. And also this one. Rare. You're very unlikely to come across many verbs in these scales. So really, guesswork is almost gone. As far as the sami'a is concerned, it's here. So we don't do guesswork. We will look at the dictionary at the beginning until we get familiar with the scales. And once we use them a couple of times, trust me, you'll be able to recall them straight away. So a root will come. It will follow one of these 6 patterns. Long as you know which pattern it follows, you can conjugate now 14 madi and 14 mudari, just like I've showed you in the previous lessons. And the rules will follow all the way through. Okay, all the way through. The variation will only come with weak verbs. We will discuss them later on, inshallah ta'ala, when the root letter will have a waw or a ya. Until we get to that stage, you are going to assume that all the scales that you've learned will be exactly the same for any root that you're going to come across that follows one of these patterns, inshallah ta'ala. And there are only 6. Baab fataha. Baab fataha is where the madi takes a fatha and the mudari second root letter also takes a fatha. So if you imagine the root letters fa, ta and ha goes through this scale, which we are naming as Baab fataha, it will be fataha yaftahu. Fataha yaftahu. Again, this is just an example verb. There will be hundreds that will go through the same scale, and all of them collectively, we're going to say follow the Baab fataha pattern. So on this screen now you can see all 14 conjugated for fataha. You can see here the scale is fa'ala yaf'alu, and the example verb that we are using is fataha yaftahu. And the short form of reference we'll use the letter fa to represent that the fact that this root will go through these set of patterns for the madi and the mudari. As far as this lesson is concerned, later on we will see the other verbs and derived nouns. So the conjugation of this I've been through in detail with you in the previous lesson. Here, inshallah ta'ala, very briefly, we will go through the conjugation. Please learn this inside out, back to front, top to bottom, whichever way you need to do it. Read it and write it a couple of times, inshallah ta'ala, until it becomes second nature to you. Why? Because if you learn these 14 plus 14 scales, which gives you 28, you will be able to recognize thousands of verbs which will follow this scale. As soon as you come across them, inshallah ta'ala, you recognize which is madi or mudari, and then from there, or looking up the dictionary, you will know which bab it follows. So let's quickly go through the scale, and then I hope and pray that you're going to write them down in order to retain the knowledge for longer. So I'll just highlight each one as I read through them. Inshallah ta'ala, take your own time and write them out. Of course, you can see also the full screen. You can take a screenshot of that until the resources are available for you, inshallah. So we have fataha. First scale, fataha, siga number 1. Fataha for dual. Fatahu. So it's fataha, fataha, fatahu. Fatahat. Fatahata. Fatahna. Fatahta. Fatahtuma. Fatahtum. Fatahti. Fatahtuma. Fatahtunna. Fatahtu. Fatahna. And again, you can see how we conjugate previously. This will be the same for every verb that goes through this scale. So if you take a bit of time to rewrite these 14, inshallah ta'ala, the madi verbs will become very, very familiar. Now let's take a look at the mudari. Since we know this follows the fataha pattern, we know the mudari will be yaftahu. Again, it could be yadhabu, yaj'alu, etc. Yaftahani, yaftahuna. Taftahu, taftahani, yaftahna. Taftahu, taftahani, taftahuna. Taftahina, taftahani, taftahna. Aftahu, naftahu. So here are the 14 of the mudari and 14 we've seen of the madi. Combined together, they give us 28 different words, 28 scales, of which will be followed by many, many other verbs that follow the same scales. So this is your Baab fataha for the madi, the mudari. Inshallah ta'ala, very soon you'll see the amr and also the derived nouns that are all derived based upon the template scale that we're going to use, which is fataha yaftahu. Now there are many, many verbs that will go through this scale or scales. I'm going to show you a few examples, inshallah ta'ala. First of all, we have, so the way normally you will see it in the dictionary, I'll explain later, you'll have the 3 root letters, usually either separate letters or joined, followed by brackets with fa. That tells you that that root will go through the fataha pattern. Of course, they all are fataha because I put them together, but normally this is how I will present vocabulary to you. So this saves a lot of space and very quick reference, and this is the quickest way to do it. I'll show you the others, but this is the quickest way in my view to do it and to learn, inshallah. So we have the example fa'ala, which is actually a word in Arabic, means he did. Yaf'alu, he does. I've given you the basic translation here because I can't fit the translation of everyone on this slide. This is what the root letters mean. So the example word that we have is fataha yaftahu, to open. So fataha will be he opened, yaftahu, he opens. Next we have the root jim, ayn and lam going to the same pattern. Can you guess what it should be? The madi will be ja'ala yaj'alu. Try to guess the next one. Sad, lam and ha. Again, the pattern is fa, so there will be salaha yaslahu. And then we have ba, ayn and tha, so ba'atha yab'athu. And then sahara yasharu. And then we have nafa'a yanfa'u. And then we have jama'a yajma'u. So the root has basic meaning to gather, for example. So jama'a, he gathered. Yajma'u, he gathers. And this is the same with all of them. So this is the quickest way, inshallah, once you learn the madi mudari, and then we will go to the amr, which is the scale you can see here. And then we will learn the derived nouns. And then, of course, there are many other forms also, like the passive forms of both madi and mudari. And we also have the negative. And we have the prohibitive, etc., etc. So there are lots of things can be added. But this is your template. This is your foundation ground. And this is how you will learn Arabic vocabulary very, very quickly, without spending hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to memorize endless list of words. So this is now the verbs that we've seen on the scale of fa'ala yaf'alu and fataha yaftahu being our example. So please make a note of the first pattern. Baab, nasara. Our next patterns are called Baab, nasara, and we're going to use the letter noon for short. Now imagine again 3 root letters, noon, sad, and ra, going through this 2 patterns that we got on the scale. So we have nasara. Can you see it? Nasara. Yansuru. Nasara yansuru. So this is your scale now. Fa'ala yaf'ulu, yielding nasara yansuru, which is one of the common verbs that's used in this scale. We're going to name the whole lot of them after this pattern, which is very easy to memorize. So again, noon for short. And the Baab we're going to call Baab nasara. Let's quickly go through the conjugation of this Baab. So Madi, Sigha 1 will be nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum, nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna, nasartu, nasarna. So here the 14 sigha of nasara pattern. We can see here all the way through the middle root letter taking a fatha. Nasara and all the way through. Any verb that follows the madi will be on this scale, and any verb that follows the mudari will be in the scale that we will look at now. So all verbs will take the second root letter in the mudari as dhamma and in the madi as fatha, we've seen, and this pattern will be called Baab nasara, and therefore we're going to have the mudari as yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna, tansuru, tansurani, yansurna, tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna, tansurina, tansurani, ansuru, nansuru. So you can see the 14 that we conjugated earlier, sigha 1 to sigha 14, following the rules of following the scales of the fa'ala yaf'ulu all the way through, and this pattern we're going to call Baab nasara. So Baab nasara is one of the most common patterns in Arabic, probably the most common that you're going to come across in the study of Form 1, inshallah ta'ala. So again, take a few minutes extra to study this very, very well. I will now show you some common verbs. So here are some examples of root that go through the nasara pattern. And you can see here I've got fa'ala yaf'ulu. So already you've seen the nasara, so it should be nasara yansuru. Sorry, I forgot to mention in the other slide, these numbers represent the number of times that root is used in the Qur'an. So it could be madi, mudari or any of the others, but it gives you the exact idea of how commonly used these roots are within the scale of nasara yansuru. So if I have nasara yansuru, try to guess what kafara would be. Of course, you probably guess it. Kafara yakfuru. Kafara, he disbelieved. Yakfuru, he disbelieves. Then we have ha, lam and qaf. So that will become khalaqa yakhluqu, to create. So he created, he creates. Dal, kaf and ra, bab nasara will be dhakara yadhkuru. Those of you reading Quran regularly, I'm sure you started now. Light bulbs are coming that you've seen these words many, many times in the Quran. And this is a very beautiful word, alhamdulillah. Ain, ba and dal, it will be abada ya'budu, to worship. And then we have razaqa yarzuqu. Razaqa yarzuqu, and nadhara yanzuru, and qatala yaqtulu. So you can see, inshallah ta'ala, we don't need to spend hours learning lots and lots of vocabulary. Long as we know the root and which pattern it follows, we can now, at least at this stage, conjugate 14 for each. That means 28 words. So learn one, or buy one, get 28 free. So if you spend a little bit of time learning this nasara pattern, so far you can get 28 free from any of the other words, inshallah ta'ala, that I've shown you. Of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of others. Baab nasara is the most common pattern you're likely to come across. Baab daraba. The next pattern we're going to call it daraba pattern. It goes through the madi and the mudari, where the madi is fataha and the mudari is kasra. And therefore, if you put dad, ra and ba through, you get daraba yadribu. Daraba yadribu. So you can see the three scales that are coming. Inshallah, this pattern you should already be familiar with from previous examples I've done. So we have daraba, and then all the 14, yadribu, and all the 14. I'll go through it a little bit quicker this time to save time on the video. Otherwise, the video may be too long. So you can see here the short form of this will be dad. Anytime you see the root with dad in the big afterwards, you know that root will follow this pattern, and therefore you can conjugate 28 words. Sigha 1, daraba, daraba, darabu, darabat, darabata, darabna, darabta, darabtuma, darabtum, darabti, darabtuma, darabtunna, darabtu, darabna. Mudari sigha 1, yadribu, yadribani, yadribuna, adribu, adribani, yadribna, adribu, adribani, adribuna, adribina, adribani, adribna, adribu, nadribu. So here are your 28. Buy one, get 28 free. Learn the daraba pattern. Again, a very commonly used scales in Arabic. Daraba, yadribu, you will find many words. For example, you will see now, inshallah, a list of examples of words that follow this pattern. Zalama yadlimu as another example. So if you learn these 28, inshallah ta'ala, you will find a lot of dividend in your study in the future. So please invest your time that you need to build this solid foundation. So let's quickly go through some patterns on the scale of daraba yadribu, which is fa'ala yaf'ilu, dad for short, which you can see here. And you can see I've put an example here. And long as you can see this, you should, if you can remember daraba yadribu, then you can remember that it will be on the scale of fa'ala yaf'ilu. So the first one we've already done. Daraba yadribu. Then we have zalama, zalama yadlimu. And then we have sad, ba, and ra. Sabara yasbiru. This is where the word sabr comes from, inshallah. Gha, fa, ra, yaghfiru. Then we have ra, ja'a, yarji'u. Okay, you should be able to say this before me, inshallah, now. Kadhaba, yakdhibu. Kasaba, yaksibu. Arafa, ya'rifu. So again, to recognize something, he recognized, he recognizes, he earned, he earns, etc., etc. So that's how you learn. Don't worry about the rest of them. You are going to learn all plus more. This is just on the screen. I couldn't get it all in one screen, but there are literally, from the root, you should be able to make several hundred words, if not thousand, inshallah ta'ala, just from one root, long as you follow a structured pattern. And these, I'm only choosing the ones that are very, very commonly used in the Qur'an, because my intention is to share with you all that you need to begin to appreciate the Qur'an in Arabic. Again, the numbers are there for you to see the frequency of the use of that root. And of course, it could be any of the sigha. Inshallah ta'ala, we will look at a later date. So this is your pattern. Daraba yadribu is all you need to remember, and the rest will be free for you. Baab sami'a. The next Baab we're going to call Baab sami'a. Again, imagine Sin, Mim, and Ain going through this scale. Now, this is the first time we are seeing the Madi take the kasra. So you have sami'a, sami'a. And this will be yasma'u. Sami'a, yasma'u. And this pattern we're going to call Baab sami'a. This is our template. Baab sami'a, yasma'u. And this is a very common Baab also in Arabic. So let's quickly go through this pattern. I'm going to just show you on the screen. Hopefully, inshallah, you will get it. I'm going to go very quickly here, inshallah, just to save time. So, Sigha 1, Madi, Sami'a, Sami'a, Sami'u, Sami'at, Sami'ata, Sami'na, Sami'ta, Sami'tuma, Sami'tum, Sami'ti, Sami'tuma, Sami'tunna, Sami'tu, Sami'na. So that's your Madi in 14 scale. Let's quickly go to the Mudari. Yasma'u, Yasma'ani, Yasma'una. Tasma'u, Tasma'ani, Yasma'na. Tasma'u, Tasma'ani, Tasma'una. Tasma'ina, Tasma'ani, Tasma'na. Asma'u, Nasma'u. And you can now see all 14 plus 14, 28. So again, you're going to come across many verbs that follow the Sami'a scale. And all you need to remember is Sami'a, Yasma'u, and then you can do 14 plus 14. So now we have same thing for Baab Sami'a, Yasma'u on the pattern of Fa'ila, Yaf'alu, and the letter Sin for short, which you can see after the root and the frequency here. So Fa'ila Yaf'alu is Sami'a Yasma'u. That's going to be our template for the rest of them, inshallah. Alima Ya'lamu, Amila Ya'malu, and then we have Rahima Yarhamu, Shahida Yashhadu, Khasira Yakhsaru, and then we have Hazina Yahzanu, and we have Kariha Yakrahu, and then we have Hafidha Yahfadhu. And you can see here, mashallah, the scales being followed and exactly the same as we've seen in many other examples. And again, there will be many other verbs that you will see following this scale, which is called Baab Sami'a, Sin for short. Baab Hasiba. The scales of Baab Hasiba is Kasra and Kasra. Please note, I mentioned earlier, there is no example with Kasra with Dhamma. That is why we're not even looking at it. It doesn't exist. So, Fa'ila will be Hasiba, Hasiba. And then we have Yahsibu, Hasiba, Yahsibu. And this scale is very rare. So, I'm going to put it on the screen. Do write it out once. You don't need to really spend a lot of time on it. If you learned the others, there's no really any variation here. But Hasiba, Yahsibu is a very rare combination in Arabic that follows the I and the I. So Fa'ila Yaf'ilu, Hasiba Yahsibu, and we're going to use this short form. Now, even though the verbs are rare, there are derived nouns which are used on this scale, and we will come across them. So therefore, inshallah ta'ala, I'm including this here as well. But many books ignore this scale because it is very, very rare. So I'm not going to give you any examples except for the one that I've given you. Hasiba yahsibu. That does not mean there aren't any. There are, but they're very, very rare. Far as I know, there are about 30 odd verbs that follow this scale, but some of them will also follow the other scale, which is the sami'a yasma'u scale. So hasiba also appears as hasiba. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake here. It should be yahsibu. Hasiba yahsibu can be also hasiba yahsabu. So again, please don't get into the details of that, what the difference is and so on. We will learn that later, but it is a very, very rare scale. So hasiba yahsibu. Please note the typo error here from me. Hasiba yahsibu, and that's it. That's not much more I can add. I can give you some verbs, but it will be waste of time for you to even learn to conjugate them. But just practice the hasiba yahsibu pattern, inshallah ta'ala, once. Baab karuma. Baab karuma follows the pattern of u and u, meaning the middle root letter taking a dhamma or pesh. Now please note again, this is a very, very rare scale. Also, when the madi takes dhamma, I should say, the mudari does not take fatha or kasra. So you can always identify very easily what the mudari should be. When the mudari takes the dhamma, you can't go backwards because it could also be fa'ala pattern, as we've seen with nasara. So again, these are hints, but a lot of people spend a lot of time on this and confuse themselves. Our job is not really to make words. Our job is to recognize words. And soon, inshallah, the Baabs also, but this is only your first lesson, so you can't expect to know all these nuanced points. But please don't focus on it. Just trust me as I go through the patterns where the focus needs to be. The focus needs to be on the first 4 that we've done, inshallah ta'ala. So again, let's quickly go through the conjugation, which you can see here. I'm not going to go read it all out, but please do take the time to write them out once, if you can, in your notebook. This will remind you to the scale. And again, this is a very, very rare scale. So I've only got one example for you, karuma yakrumu, but there are many, many derived nouns, which is especially this one, which we are going to learn on this scale. The verbs are rarely used. I think no more than a handful you come across in all your studies. So we can again pick them up as we go along, but there is no need to spend a lot of time on it. So this is your Baab karuma yakrumu. On the screen you can see I've done the whole 6 Baabs for you, written them down in vertical order so you can see them, inshallah ta'ala. Do take a screenshot of this, and by all means, it's more important that you actually write them down in your notebook so the knowledge will stick. I hope and pray there is no mistakes in this. I've tried to double check, triple check, but inshallah ta'ala, let me know in the comments if there are any typing errors. Otherwise, this will become your main focus of the 6 Baabs, and you can see 14 and 14, 28 words on the scales which are fixed depending on the Baab that the root will go through. And from now on, please note, Baab fataha, fa for short, Baab nasara, noon for short, Baab daraba, dad for short, Baab sami'a, sin, and Baab hasiba, ha, and Baab karuma, kaf. And this is how we will refer to them. Summary of the 6 Baabs. Let me take this opportunity to share with you how normally other books of reference, just in case you come across them, they may refer to the scales. Some books, particularly English books that are written to teach Arabic grammar, they might give you AA, meaning fatha, fatha, or fatha, dhamma, fatha, kasra. So that's one way of referring to it. Some will only give you the vowels. So they put the root and then they put this. So you guess from here. Another way of doing it, referring to the same thing. And of course, a and u and a and e, etc. So you can see different ways, different books of reference use. Some dictionaries, especially the modern English dictionaries, tend to have the root here. They will tell you this, and then they will put the mudari as a single haraka, and for you to recognize, okay, this will be Baab fataha, and this will be Baab nasara, etc. I personally prefer the one that's used in the Indian subcontinent and other places also, which have been used for many, many years. And that is to give each one of these babs a name. And the name that we give them is based upon a common verb that is used within those scales. And therefore, we use the example here. For example, I went through this with you. Fataha, yaftahu. So, fa for short form. Noon for Baab nasara. Dad for Baab daraba. That gives us a very precise way of naming the Baab. Even though you could technically agree or argue that these are very similar. The only thing happening is the middle root letter changing. The sign on the middle root letter, I should say. So what's the reason? Why do we need it? Well, you need precision. Therefore, knowing the scale helps you to know the madi and the mudari. And the dictionary will tell you this, as I mentioned already. And as long as you know the Baab sami'a, Baab hasiba, and Baab karuma, the rest is very, very easy. So this is the methodology that I tend to follow, and I find it easier, and I advise you to also follow. It saves you trying to remember a, u, and e, and u, a. These things I find quite confusing, but if you find the others suitable, by all means follow that. But I follow the route that's the easiest for me. So again, just to show you how different ways do it, we're going to call them Baab fataha, fa for short, Baab nasara, noon for short, Baab daraba, dad, Baab sami'a, sin, Baab hasiba, ha, Baab karuma, kaf. And that's basically the short form or the summary of the 6 Baabs. So from now on, the vocabulary will be given this way. Jim, Ain, and Lam. So we have Ja'ala yaj'alu because it follows the fataha pattern. Nafa'a yanfa'u. Abada ya'budu. Nasara. Khalaqa yakhluqu. Raja'a yarji'u because it follows the daraba pattern. Ghafara yaghfiru. Again, dad daraba pattern. Daraba yadribu. Hafidha yahfadhu. Okay. Alima ya'lamu. This is a very common verb. He knew. Okay, he guarded or he protected. Na'ima, I've given you another one from Baab hasiba. Okay, it will be following the na'ima pattern because it follows the hasiba. Okay, and then we have 2 from the karuma as an example. Ha, sin, and noon. So it will be hasuna and ba'uda. Very, very easy, inshallah, reference. And this is what I'm going to be using from now on, inshallah ta'ala. So how are you going to remember all 6 patterns? I'm going to give you a very quick way of remembering. If you remember these English sentences, inshallah ta'ala, in the way I'm reading them out, repeat it a couple of times for the rest of your life, inshallah ta'ala, these 6 patterns will be second nature to you. So again, remember, fataha, yaftahu, nasara, yansuru, daraba, yadribu, sami'a, yasma'u, hasiba, yahsibu, and karuma, yakrumu. How to remember all 6 of them in the order. This is what you need to say to yourself. Ready? Open the Qur'an. Fataha yaftahu. Allah will help you. Nasara yansuru. Otherwise the dunya will beat you. Daraba yadribu. Therefore listen carefully. Sami'a yasma'u. And count your good deeds. Hasiba yahsibu. And be noble. Karuma yakrumu. So if you remember this order, inshallah ta'ala, these sentences will help you remember the order of the Baabs. And of course recall the pattern also. Let's go through it one more time. Open the Qur'an. Fataha yaftahu. Allah will help you. Nasara yansuru. Otherwise the dunya will beat you. Daraba yadribu. Therefore listen carefully. Sami'a yasma'u. And count your good deeds. Hasiba yahsibu. And be noble. Karuma yakrumu. I hope and pray, inshallah ta'ala, this will help you to remember the 6 patterns and in the order. And then alhamdulillah, you got the most important tool now to recognize thousands and thousands of verbs and derived nouns. Inshallah, we'll build our solid foundation on these patterns. So before concluding, just a very quick overview of the terms. I didn't want to focus on the terms, but if you learn them, it will help. The term Baab is plural is abwab. So written here for you, Baab, abwab. Each one is called a Baab and abwab. Literally means door in Arabic or doors. We've covered this word before in book 1. It is used for the science of Sarf. So basically it tells us the scale pattern of the madi, mudari, the amr, all the verbs and all the derived nouns that come. These patterns organize the formation of verbs and derived nouns, asma, into consistent and predictable structures. What that technical term means, that is predictable, you know exactly. So as soon as you know the root, the Baab it follows, you can make the rest of the words yourself, allowing learners to understand how words are conjugated and constructed in Arabic. Now you can refer to Baab as patterns, templates, as I've been doing throughout this lesson, categories, models, chapters, sections, whatever you like. But I prefer you start using the term Baab, even though it means door, but it literally is the way the scholars of the past have done it. Baab meaning the root goes through this door and everything else follows. So this is the terminology part, Baab and Abwab. So what will happen if you study the Baabs? First of all, you will have a systematic learning system. A Baab provides a template for easy learning and formation. Big picture view. The Abwab gives you an overview. It's like a map of all the words that are derived from that root. Accelerate your learning of Arabic very, very quickly. And of course, vocabulary expansion, I mentioned that. If you know the root, the door it goes through, hundreds, at least hundreds, if not 1,000 word, is in your vocabulary list. And of course, this is the quickest way to unlock the learning of Arabic. Very, very quick. You might see many books being sold in the market. Buy this book and you learn 80% of the words of the Quran, 95% of the words of the Quran. These books are available freely on the internet. Inshallah ta'ala, you can get them. But the point is, nobody learns from lists. What they learn from is usage. And this is where we need to focus, inshallah ta'ala. So unlocking Arabic, vocabulary expansion, accelerating your learning, big picture overview, like a map, an overview of all the words that are derived, either verbs or asma, and of course, systematic learning are the purpose or the aim of studying in this methodology, inshallah ta'ala. So imagine there is a door. If the root goes through fa'ala yaf'alu door, we're going to call it fataha, fa for short. If it goes fa'ala yaf'ulu, we're going to call it nasara, nun for short. Fa'ala yaf'ilu will be daraba, and of course fa'ila yaf'alu will be sami'a, and fa'ila yaf'ilu will be hasiba, and we have karuma, which is the last one. That's not all. Then we have other doors which are extra. So the first group is called Mujarrad, and of course different people use the methodology. I'm going to use noon, fa, noon, dad, sin, ha, and kaf. This will give you the precision that you need. And then in the English books, you'll find Form 1. But Form 1 has 6 variations, and that is why I split it. Form 2 to Form 10, and there are others, by the way, but that's all we need. Form 2 to 10, again, not all of them are common as the others. Form 9 is very rare, but Form 2 to Form 10 will give you almost all that you need to learn for understanding the usage of derived verbs and asma in the Qur'an. That's it. There are very few words outside that, very few 4-letter words, very few that fall outside these patterns. There are, but few. So why worry about 3% or 2% or 1% when you can learn 98% very, very easily? So these are the patterns, and again, don't worry about what they are. Fa'ala, fa'ala, af'ala, and tafa'ala, and so on and so forth. I will explain each one. Allah give tawfiq and life. I will explain each one to you in forthcoming lessons, and we will do enough revision, enough overview as well as revision of it to get to understand and recognize these patterns. But now we're focusing on Form 1 because whatever rules we learn is applicable. So it is not only that we derived verbs from it. I'm just giving you a quick overview here, inshallah ta'ala. Some of this has been mentioned in the introductory session. So you'll also get the madi, which we already done, mudari we've done, but we haven't done the passive form. So the madi has a passive form, the mudari has a passive form. Then we have the imperative as well as the prohibitive, meaning telling somebody to do something, telling somebody not to do something. Then we have the asma, the derived nouns, and there's quite a few patterns. And we have also the verbal noun. A verbal noun is predictable for all 2 to 10, but not for 1. And then we have the derived nouns, the noun of the doer, noun of the object, etc., etc., etc. So there is quite a lot of derived words, and as I said, each one, if you can imagine, this is giving us 14, this is giving us 14, this is giving us 14, 28, 14 here, 14 here, 6 here, 6 there. You just add the numbers up, you can see hundreds of words have been formed just from the root, for as long as we know which door they go through. And that's all we need to learn. The principles are exactly the same. So again, I've illustrated a few more things here, which you can see. I haven't put all the derivation on the column, otherwise they won't be able to read the text. There are literally many, many types of verbs and nouns that we can put here. We only put in the main headline ones. So you can see even for Form 2, 3, 4, there are predictable scales. At this stage, please don't try to memorize them. I will show you quick ways as and when we come across them, inshallah ta'ala. So All of these are called mazid, meaning extra, because they not only have the 3 root letters, they have something extra. For example, there's an extra alif here, there's an extra hamza here, there's an extra ta, and a doubling of the second root letter. Same thing, doubling of the second root letter, etc., etc. So this is how it works. These are the letters split up for you. Additions are in blue. Everything's there ready for us, inshallah ta'ala. Allah grant tawfiq to continue the lessons for me to produce them, inshallah ta'ala. And inshallah, I've done the plan for the course. I'm just going through as quickly as I can, and we will be going through all of this. A lot of you asked many questions, and I can understand that. I was the same. I used to ask hundreds of questions and think of all these weird rules and so on. But please try to trust me on this. I'm sharing with you that which you need to know. There is absolutely no benefit in learning things that are rare, very unlikely to come across, because you're going to lose yourself in that. The best is to learn what's going to come most common. And if you take care of 80-90%, the 10% will look after themselves. So it's very important, inshallah ta'ala, that we try to focus at the beginning. Just trust me on this. All these patterns look daunting, but they're a lot easier than the first one that we're learning. Lot easier. And you just need to learn one verb in each one, and you will be on the motorway going 70 miles an hour, inshallah ta'ala, or faster in your Arabic learning. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, we have completed this lesson. I'm not going to split the video into 2, just put it in one, inshallah ta'ala. I will put timestamps so you can follow it through. May Allah reward you all for your efforts, and I'm just hoping and pray that whatever I'm doing is actually helping you. I'm doing my level best to make the lessons as beneficial to you as possible. I don't want the lesson to be entertaining or viral or anything like that. It's just that you can benefit from them. That's the whole purpose of doing that. I do really want to apologize to many of you, and I'm getting so many emails, and I'm really grateful for your du'as. It's just the speed of the lessons being produced. I'm a one-man band, so I'm doing everything on my own. That is the filming, the editing, the checking of errors, everything is being done, and therefore the process is very slow. I don't have to have the access to resources, unfortunately, to produce more videos, but I will try my level best to try to keep as quick as I can in producing these videos. They take a lot of time from my notes back down to the PowerPoint, and making sure everything's included, and also making sure that the video is edited correctly as well. All of these are time consuming, so I sincerely apologize to all of you for the delay. I know some of you wait for weeks sometimes, and it is to do with the busy schedule that I have in terms of work and other commitments. So anyway, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, reward you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of your heart for all your help and all your suggestions and your du'as and your support. Jazakumullahu khairan. I cannot really thank you enough. It is the reward that Allah Azza wa Jal grant us all if we pursue the study of Arabic. Until the next video, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.